on another level that is a collective trauma. And I'm extremely thankful to you and to the center and to Carole and to Jonathan for everything that you're doing in order to create this space for us to be able to process what we're going through together, because I think it's extremely important. Also, I want to say that I am, in my position, I represent the Israeli industry in the US, and I try to create opportunities for the filmmakers in the US. I'm a professional hire, I'm not a professional diplomat, and I am not a political appointee.
Good, then you'll be honest. I want to dive right in, and we started talking about it a little bit. There's been hints already so let's start, how was the industry, the film industry specifically, impacted? Obviously, the great tragedies of October 7th and the aftermath, of a country at war are one thing, but there was also, as already noted, 2 months of just like shutdown, lockdown, and the industry was impacted from all different directions, as far as I understand. Can you share a little bit more of some of the impact that you've seen? And Tchelet, from your perspective too, what have you seen as the impact in terms of from your job?
Okay, so as I said, it was like 2 months of nothing, and everybody was in shock. And slowly we came back. Actually, from my personal point of view on the industry, the film Running on Sand was supposed to be released on October 23rd, and of course we didn't release it, and we postponed it. And then I like the first days I have a driving truck license, so in Israel you have to have that. And so I was going to the north and to the south, bringing soldiers stuff. And then I thought, after like 1 week, I thought, okay, what can I bring to the table that is mine, like something special, because there are a lot of drivers. And then I thought, well, I have the film ready, and I can't do anything with it, and nobody knew what will happen in the future. We didn't even think about releasing. It's my first feature film as a director, and I really wanted to show it to the world, but I can't right now. So what I did is I went to all the evacuees in the hotels in Israel, from Eilat in the south to the north, and I just screened my film for free, of course, for all the evacuees. They needed some escapism, and so this is what I did. I did 45 screenings through all out Israel, and this was the premiere of the film, actually. And one screening was, I remember it was 3 weeks after October 7th, and I did it in En-Gedi to evacuees from Be'eri, which they suffered really bad. And I was really scared before the screening, but then we screened the film, and I stayed with them together and talked after it. And they told me it's the first time that they didn't think about anything. They didn't think about the news. They didn't think about what happened. They just enjoyed the film and got into it. And actually, this is when I decided to release the film on December 7th, which is 2 months after. During the war, nothing. I was the first film that was released in Israel after the war. And it was scary because, I invested so much in the film, and who knew who will come to the cinema right now? But I understood it when I screened the film to Be'eri evacuees, that people need it. They need to get away. In Israel, it's especially in the first 2 or 3 months, also now, but in the first 2 or 3 months, it was all news. You didn't get anything but the news. Everybody was in the news, so they needed the Israeli audience needed to run away in some way, and I gave it to them. And a lot of people came. Actually, almost 200,000, which is a lot, even not during war in Israel. So this is my experience with the film and with the industry. I can talk a lot because I deal with a lot of things that happened to the Israeli industry, because we also in Israel, we came back and we're now working and shooting, and it's pretty okay. But outside of Israel, it's really, really hard, because even my film, I have a sales agent, like a world sales agent, and he told me, I met him in February in Berlin, and he told me, listen, nobody wants to deal with Israeli films right now. It's really hard to sell to any territory. It's not easy, because it's an Hebrew film, it's not easy to sell it anyway, but after the war, nobody wants to talk about it even it doesn't have anything to do with the situation, but nobody wants it. And in festivals all over the world, it's really hard to get in because of this. We are kind of banned. It's like we're like Russia in the world. We're like Russia, but not like officially. So it's really hard situation, and we are trying to think how to solve it and what to do, but it's really hard. I hope we will get it somehow.
Gidi Dar, who is our director from opening night, he was supposed to be on this panel, but unfortunately he's not feeling well. And he had mentioned, he said that, Israel was a favorite of the film festivals and of the international scene, and everything that Israel was creating, America was making a new American version of that series and looking at it very seriously. And then suddenly, after October 7th, there's been this silence on the international level. Anybody want to share a little bit on that international, what's happening in the international scene?
First of all, in terms of the productions in Israel, so I think what Adar is talking about is mainly the fiction aspect. So a lot of the production halted, but in many ways for documentaries, it was the opposite, because there was like a big war industry happening and a lot of networks coming in from the outside. So a lot of DOPs and producers and a lot of people worked very hard, still working around the topics of October 7th. And the broadcasters in Israel shifted a lot of their budgets to topics that are dealing with the war. So at least for the documentary industry, it kept on working all the time. But in terms of co-productions, and myself, my films were always co-productions. I needed it for exposure, and I needed it to get a decent budget, because there's only so much money you can raise inside Israel. And if you have a bigger budget, and if you want to make animation or use expensive archival footage or just invest in your film, you need the co-productions. And now it seems almost impossible. And it started before, actually, at least with the festivals. It's not a new thing. We know that Sundance, IDFA, which is the biggest documentary festival, and you look at the programs for the last decade or so, you only see specific Israeli films that are very, very critical, and just nice personal stories, or it's absent from many festivals. So this started before, and it's definitely got much worse since the war. In the sense that even people who are not critical of Israel or even pro-Israel, they're taking a step back, because why should they deal with this thing? So it's a problem, and it's affecting us in a way that we have to rethink about our productions, and we have to rethink about our topics.
Tchelet, you picked up the microphone.
I did. Yeah, Dan said most of what I wanted to say, honestly, because it's true. I would divide it to a few different aspects. So there is film and there is television. Film and the art world and festival world, we have seen this decline in Israeli participants, and exactly as Dan mentioned, it's very specific topics, very specific stories that were picked up by festivals, and it's been like that for the last decade or so. In my position, I formed this. We shifted our efforts towards television because no one was answering our calls for film, anyways. So we started focusing on television. Television was easier. And there was a great success, and it was like, a lot of people talk about there's a sensation of a perfect storm that happened, and I think it has to do with this as well, because there's what's going on in the global industry, that there was this peak for international content in general, and Israel was in the forefront because Israel was already in that field before global streaming started, before the people started to being open to international language, to foreign language content. So Israel was there with Israeli content since In Treatment and with remakes and such, and then there was Shtisel and Fauda, and it felt like this is really, Israel is punching above its weight, and it's happening, and we had this event, we formed Scripted Israel. Adar is our partner on that. That is a strategic initiative that is aimed to help promote the Israeli TV scripted industry in the U.S. industry. We bring over 50 of Israel's top producers and writers to Los Angeles and create all sorts of interactions between them and the American industry in order to create co-productions. The reason why we need the co-productions is that because of global streaming, local broadcasters have lost their power, and that is happening all over the world. This is not specific to Israel, because people buy their Netflix subscription, and they don't subscribe to local companies like Hot or Yes that are the cable companies in Israel. So these broadcasters have less money, they have less revenue, and they have less money to invest in original content. And that is why we need the money from abroad to complete the budget. So that's why we were really focused on co-productions. Now, what is happening in the industry at large, not only, again, it's not just the Israeli story, it's not just the fact that we became leopards, it's more than that. We've seen the strike, and we've seen freezing of all those, like the moment of international content and the boom of streamers. Now we're seeing consolidation. We're seeing a lot less risk. We're seeing a lot of these different streamers are buying one another. A lot of people are losing their jobs. So that appetite for international content is diminished. And on top of that, there is the fact that who wants to deal with that if you're not connected to this extremely hot topic right now, why should you? And we can see that in different aspects as well. I mean, we see this. That's why I'm so thankful to you for programming it, because it's gutsy to program Israeli content right now, because you've seen demonstrations outside of institutions, Jewish institutions, the 92nd Y here, the Jewish Museum. God, yeah, I know.
Don't let them know.
So I understand.
Give them any ideas.
No, I know. I'm kind of surprised. But yeah, so I'm saying I understand why would people want to engage. And I can tell you an anecdote, a sad story from the past week for me. And we were working on the second edition of Scripted Israel, and I think it's really important to do that and to make a mark in the industry's calendar, a week where they have to pay attention to Israeli content and to Israeli creators. But we've had our partners. We've had a fantastic partnership, and I'm not going to name names because these are big names. But we've had fantastic partnerships with all of the big companies in Hollywood. And I'm talking to one of our partners. On a personal level, everybody's friend, everybody loves us. But when it comes to brands, Israel is a problematic brand. Now, Scripted Israel was funded by the Foreign Ministry on its first edition, and that was historical, but this is no longer the case, and we took it outside, and we have philanthropic partners that are supporting us because we wanted it to be more accessible. We didn't want people to say, oh, we don't want to do business with the Israeli government, and then the artists suffer. So we went out and we found funding, and this partner tells us, I'm sorry, we can't do anything with you this year, and you know how much I love you, and you know how much I care, but my board is not going to approve it. And I said, well, but we're not funded by the government, and also that half of our delegation is actually Palestinian identifying Israelis, and we're all about, and I start reselling him the project, and he says, it's just the word. That word, people go nuts when they hear it.
Well, I have a lot more to add to all of this. I first of all want to start from the beginning and say that that yes, there has been a Israeli cinema. As somebody who follows it very closely, Israeli cinema has been less represented throughout the last decade in international film festivals. Some might say it's political. Some might say it's artistic. It's also Israeli artists have been moving more towards television, and there's. So maybe some of the top artists are not want to make some money, so they're working with television. But what's going on this year to follow it? This is the first year that Sundance really did not have any Israeli films. Cannes did not have any Israeli feature films. Tribeca added one later on, added tonight's film, but it wasn't in their original, which. All might be the reasoning for all these. All of these are festivals that always had Israeli cinema. By the way, we could look back before October 7th. Toronto usually had 11 Israeli films. They had like 1 or 2 this year.
I wonder if they announced it late to keep the focus out.
So that is one of the theories, is that it's not that these festivals are actually boycotting or divesting from Israel, but it's actually that they are like, let's not cause trouble, because, and this goes back to what you were saying, because of the word, which seems to be limiting at times and causing reactions. I'll say this here, it hasn't been, that for what we're doing here in our Israel, this is, I know we had a pandemic, but it's our most successful year to date. There is an audience that wants to see Israeli cinema and that's not afraid of the word. Jonathan, I want to make you a part of this too and just see if, in terms of the impacts that you've seen on Israeli production, if you wanted to share anything.
I'm not sure I have interesting feedback regarding production. I'll just say that, in a way, being the primary, as creators, we are suffering from the boycott. In a way, I'll just add that I think that this possibly will go away. It might be naive, but I think once this very racist and populist government will, if the people can topple it and we can move onwards, I think it's very possible for the pendulum to start swinging the other way. I'm not sure about the international front. I think Adardo and Khaled know more about that right now because I've been out of the loop for the last 9 months. But I will say that domestically there's terrible things happening as well. The Minister of Culture, Miki Zohar, is also advancing a very destructive reform currently in Israel, which is giving precedence to, I'd say, commercial film. That's the way he will say it. My film, at least, I think Adar's as well, was supported by a fund, by a national fund that is soft money that is crucial for any production. And this will make creators steer away from political content if they want to get government funding. It's a populist move. It will definitely affect the way cinema is going to the productions that are going to happen, and it's not going to help us on the international front because commercial movies that do well domestically, I think, usually correlates with films that usually appeal less to the international festival circuit. So this is a perfect storm. And I do, the only thing that's left for me is to go back and try to take to the streets. And during the day, I'm a soldier, but during the evenings, the streets are getting more and more filled with people. And I hope that we are up for this moment.
I have to pause on this beautiful image of what goes on in Israel in terms of that you can be a soldier during the day fighting for your country and in the evening protesting that same country, that same government. Dan, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's a trap. Because everything Jonathan said is very true, but it makes it very difficult to protest, because at the end of the day, he's a soldier. A lot of people are soldiers or have soldiers. So there's only, how far can you go with it? And we as filmmakers, most of us feel trapped because, in a way, the world is against us and our government is against us. I mean, it's not only the Minister of Culture, it's the Minister of Communication, who hates culture, who hates communication, who doesn't watch TV. So everything this government does is to attack its own creators and cultural representatives. So it's a problem. And when we're talking about our situation in the world, of course, part of it is anti-Semitism. A lot of it is hypocrisy. And I've been witnessing it closely on social media with people from the filmmakers community. And you see the way they talk about Israel, the way they talk about Zionism, people who just saw a post or saw one documentary feel that they can comment on 1948 and everything that happened. So it's very annoying. But on the other hand, this government with all these really racist elements is giving all the excuses they need for this stream of hate. So if this government doesn't go away, we really don't stand a chance on any front.
So let me ask you, are there filmmakers who are making critical films right now? Are there filmmakers who are using their art to really, at this moment when, we all have to be unified and we all have to, stay with the party line, are people actually standing up to that?
It's very difficult. I just, like last year in Doc Aviv, there was a documentary about Doc Aviv is the documentary festival in Tel Aviv, and actually, just like you said that you have a good turnout now, there was just a festival now in Tel Aviv, and there was a lot of fears about how to make it, and it was beautiful, and it was packed, and it was very successful as well. So people are really looking for culture and looking for stories on the screen. But a film that was there last year about 1948 was supposed to be on Cannes 11 on the national broadcasters, and they keep postponing it. A film that won an award this year about the Kfar Qasim massacre in 1956, a very powerful and important film, supposed to go on Yes Docu, and they don't have the feeling is that the broadcasters are afraid now to touch sensitive material, and it's hard to see filmmakers picking up on these topics now because you work so hard and for so long to make a film, so why should you pick on a film that will never broadcast? So it's a problem now.
Anyone else want to add to that? The positive work that's being done, you've mentioned here somewhere, I forget who, that a lot of filmmakers went right to work right after October 7th to kind of capture, keep things going, edit, whatever it would be. Can you share some examples of some of the work that's emerged out of October 7th?
Yeah, it's mostly documentary, so you should answer.
No, actually, I heard about one fiction film that is, I don't know if it's if he wants us to talk about it, but it's an Israeli director who went I think he shot in November, in Nir Oz or Nachal Oz in one of the kibbutzim, and he made like a semi-fiction film. He created a fictional story on the background of the actual sites of the massacre, and I haven't seen it, but I heard it's very powerful. So he found a way to do like a semi-documentary. And there's many documentaries that are now in work. Some already, again, Cannes, the national broadcasters, they're very active. They have the resources. I think there are 4 or 5 documentaries about the Nova Film Festival. 2 already out. Another one in the process. Many films about different families in Be'eri. Things that have come out already and things that are in production. For me personally, so if I had a series before October 7th about like a docu-crime series that I was eager to make, now I don't know, like I don't really understand the relevance, but another fiction project I was developing before and forgot about 1948 now feels super important and super relevant, so I went back to work on this. So yeah, things shift.
I want to add to that. There was a call for entries by one of Israel's funds days after October 7th, because again, in Israel, most films are being funded by funds, and they are public. I mean, the money comes from the government at the end of the day most of the time. It's not like here in the U.S. where projects are funded privately, and that's an important difference to remember. And one of those funds released immediately a call for entries for just development to go out and shoot for documentaries. That's the new Israeli fund for cinema and television. And they thought they would get 2-3 submissions because it was days after and everybody was shocked, and they received over 130 submissions. And I think they gave to 38. Just it's not a lot of money. It was just like to start seed money. And we recently did, again, like trying to help. So we did this Zoom session where we invited people of interest who may be able to invest, who may be able to do a pre-sale, who may be able to help with distribution of these films, because the situation is that these are really very diverse projects. We selected 6 projects that I believe have some sort of international potential.